Hey, yes, it is the DPB show. I'm David Paul Blumenshine here, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Wow, I don't know about you, but Thanksgiving is probably one of my favorite times of the year, even more so than Christmas. I think it's an opportunity for us to really reflect and be thankful for all that God has done for us and what he will continue to do for us. Once again, always appreciate you joining me here on Sundays from 1 to 3. Uh, and you can also join us on our platforms of social media. That would be YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Facebook. And that fact, we're live on Facebook right now. Um, so let's go ahead and just get started. If you had the opportunity to be over on our Facebook page, you would see that today's title of the show is What is Evil? Why does God allow evil? Isn't this a great question? Well, this was a question that happened to be brought up in a classroom on a college campus. You would probably say, oh, that has to be in modern times, right here, probably right over at Illinois State University or Illinois Wesleyan or the University of Illinois or any of the universities throughout the state of Illinois, throughout the Midwest area, that this could be a discussion. Well, let me go ahead and just give you the insights on this little quote, I should say. Why did God create evil? The answer struck me to the core of my soul. A professor at the university asked his students the following question: everything that exists was created by God. One student bravely answered, yes, created by God. Did God create everything? The professor asked. Yes, sir, replied the student. The professor asked, if God created everything, then God created evil, since it exists. And according to the principle that our deeds define ourselves, then God is evil. The student became silent after hearing such an answer. The professor was very pleased with himself, of course. He boasted to the students for proving once again that faith in God is a myth. Another student raised his hand and said, can I ask you a question, Professor? Of course, replied the professor. A student got up and asked, Professor, is cold a thing? What kind of question? Of course it exists. Have you ever been cold? He asked the student. Students laughed at the young man's question. The young man answered, actually, sir, cold doesn't exist. According to the law of physics, what we consider cold is actually the absence of heat. A person or object can be studied on whether it has or transmits energy. Absolute zero, a negative 460 degrees Fahrenheit, is a complete absence of heat. All matter becomes inert and unable to react at this temperature. Cold does not exist. We created this word to describe what we feel in the absence of heat. A student continued, Professor, does darkness exist? Of course it exists, said the professor. The student said, you're wrong again, sir. Darkness also does not exist. Darkness is actually the absence of light. We can study the light, but not the darkness. We can use Newton's prism to spread white light across multiple colors and explore the different wavelengths of each color. You can't measure darkness. A simple ray of light can break into the world of darkness and illuminate it. How can you tell how dark a certain space is? You measure how much light is present. Isn't it so? Darkness is a term man uses to describe what happens in the absence of light. In the end, the young man asked the professor, Sir, does evil exist? This time it was uncertain. The professor answered, Of course, as I said before, We see him every day. Cruelty, numerous crimes, and violence throughout the world. These examples are nothing but a manifestation of evil. To this, the student answered, evil does not exist, sir, or at least it does not exist for itself. Evil is simply the absence of God. It is like darkness and cold, a man-made word to describe the absence of God. God did not create evil. Evil is not faith or love, which exist as light and warmth. Evil is the result of the absence of divine love in the human heart. It's the kind of cold that comes when there is no heat, or the kind of darkness that comes when there's no light. Now, I'm going to save the punchline here from this quote in this story. As I started saying, this could be any college campus in the Midwest, across the United States, right now, today. We understand that these type of discussions are happening where professors are professing that God is dead, that evil is God. God is evil because God created everything. I'll let you in on it. This was over 100 years ago, and the student's name was Albert Einstein. And as Paul Harvey says, now you know the rest of the story. And that's where I want to kind of just take and go with this, because it is Thanksgiving. It is the season when we are thankful and we celebrate together. And I know that many of you are finding yourself maybe not in a season of Thanksgiving. And I too understand this. I've been there. I've lived it. And it isn't always easy. In fact, I will tell you, I'll go in the Wayback Machine, as I like to do, and I'm going to take you back to 2014. And it was something that I shared on my social media page. And you can see it today if you go out to David Paul Blumenshine on my personal page. And I reshared it because I think it is so pertinent to what we are experiencing today, because we all need to be mindful. As Albert Einstein was mindful with this professor to explain so eloquently physics, which obviously this professor wasn't steeped in. But this is from 2014. This is a little quote, and I posted this, like I said, on my Facebook page. Some thoughts as we enter the holiday season, because the holidays are upon us, right? We are started full-fledged in the holiday season here at Great Plains Media. Our sister station, Magic 99.5, is broadcasting Christmas music around the clock, 24/7, right now until Christmas Day. So the season is upon us. Thanksgiving kind of is the kickoff. We see this throughout the commerce world. You have Black Friday, you have Cyber Monday, you have Small Business Saturday. I hope many of you participated yesterday in with some of our local vendors here, local shops, because it's so important and vital to our economy and vital to the future of the United States of America. Small businesses comprise well over 85% of the businesses in the United States of America. I know a lot of people aren't aware of that. So, by all means, a little plug for our small businesses. Get out there and support them. It's just not on Saturday. We need to support them throughout this time of the year, the most wonderful time of the year, as many say, to bring joy, to bring goodwill to others. But as I digress, let me get back to what I was sharing with you, that this is posted November 26th of 2014. Some thoughts as we enter the holiday season. It is important to remember that not everyone is surrounded by large, wonderful families. Some of us have problems during the holidays, and some of us are overcome with great sadness when we remember the loved ones who are not with us. And many people have no one to spend these times with and are besieged by loneliness. We all need caring, loving thoughts right now. If I don't see your name, I will understand. And of course, once again, I was doing this as a copy and paste. And I know a lot of you probably are like, I hate those things. Well, I'm not really fond of them. But the message behind this one is so spot on. So basically, it goes on. May I ask my friends, whenever you might be in a position where you have family problems, health struggles, job issues, worries of any kind, and just needs to know someone cares, do it for somebody else. That's what this season is about. That's what Thanksgiving is about, is our ability to bless others, to take the blessings that we've been given and to share those with the masses. That's what makes the season bright. That's what makes the season so special. As I go back to Albert Einstein, the professor was wrong. God did not create evil, and God is not evil. God is light, and in him there is no darkness. That is so important at this time of the year, that we realize that there are people who live in a darkness where they need light. They need somebody to walk into the darkness of their lives as a candle and shining their light into that darkness. And it's as simple as holding a door, saying thank you, please. It might even be, for some of you out there on the social media platforms, choosing not to respond with a comment, or maybe even choosing to respond in a manner where somebody might be, you know, besieged with comments of despair towards their character, that even though you might not agree with their comment, you still lend a helping hand, where you try to diffuse the 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 rancor, the vitriol, that you too are the light in this darkness. It is so important. I hope that you and your family are experiencing an amazing holiday season, Thanksgiving season, as we approach going into the Christmas season. I had to go back to my calendar to look, because I know that many faith traditions celebrate this time of the year, the Advent season. It is the 4 weeks preceding Christmas Day, and the Advent wreath is put in place and candles are lit. That was my upbringing. That's what I experienced. That was my Christmas experience, not only the tree and the decorations, but the Advent wreath and the Advent candles, and going to Sunday Mass and celebrating the Eucharist and the liturgy during the season. I know many of you from different faith walks are also experiencing the buildup to the season of Emmanuel. God is with us. And so I ask that you not only reach out to your fellow human at this time, because Lord knows, and I was telling Kat before we went on air here today, and she's joining me in studio again because I'm still learning to ride my bike without my training wheels.
Doing
That
a great job, David
that
Paul
means that
Blumenschein.
I'm running the board again as always. But I was telling Kat, we wake up every day, and I mean, how long does it take for us, if you happen to peruse social media when you wake up? I truly try to tell you to not do that. I'm guilty as the next person. I quickly try to get back to my devotions and to read my scriptures, because that's where I like to start. One way to avoid doing that is probably let the phone just settle itself. Settle, settle, settle. I know a lot of us have to be busy with the task of checking email, looking at our schedules for today, what lies ahead. But it's so important we take time to reflect, because before we know it, and it takes almost a nanosecond, that we're inundated with all of the crazy, all of the chaos, as I deem this show, uncovering corruption, because corruption continues to exist. This is what Einstein was aware of. Man created chaos. God did not create chaos. I'm going to let Kat comment a little bit more about the chaos in her life and tell us a little bit about her Thanksgiving when we come back here at Cities 92.9. The news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We got a lot to cover today. AT&T, believe it or not, it's now being reported. They spy on us. Wow. Really? Yeah, would have never seen that one coming. But we're going to cover other things. We have Dan Calkins coming in studio today to bring us up to speed on his lawsuit against Governor Pritzker in the state of Illinois. It has reached the level of the Supreme Court. In fact, it's the only lawsuit filed here in the state of Illinois that has reached the level of the Supreme Court. So we look forward to that in the second hour. But a lot of things to discuss here on this Thanksgiving Day weekend, and we look forward to doing that with you. We're going to take a break now to let you hear from our sponsors. We'll be back. Okay. Yeah, here we are. Hold on, let me take my headphones off because I can't ever hear myself think. You ever need that, Kat? Hearing yourself think? Hey, welcome to everyone. Thank you. Paul Garcia Productions. Interesting topic, Paul Garcia says. Well, Paul, you know what? I know that you're downstairs, and if you'd like to come up and join us in studio for a minute or two, I'd love to have your insights on that. I'd also like to hear about your Thanksgiving. So appreciate all of you that tune in here. Definitely go out, like, subscribe on the YouTube channel. That is the David Paul Blumenshine Show, DPB Show. You usually have to search that by putting my full name in, David Paul Blumenshine. Of course, there are many DPBs. I didn't realize so many DPBs. I'm going to have to meet some of these other DPBs because maybe we'll have a DPB reunion. But once again, thank you for joining us. Yes, it is a little deep topic to jump off with, but I couldn't help myself. I was moved by this. I read this. This came from a friend of mine down in Effingham, and she happened to be someone that I worked side by side with in the Bailey campaign. And I told her that today I was going to share that and make it a part of my show. So that's what we've done. I got to always keep an eye. You know what? I get a little excited when I get on camera here and I'm watching myself and I forget about the clock over here. All right. We're going to be back in a minute. That says it all. You're right. The mercies are new. Grace is daily. It comes at us every day. Thank God. Glory be to God for that, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about here today. God did not create evil. Evil exists, but God did not create it. Evil is the absence of the presence of God. Therefore, we have to have a name for it, and it's evil. I mean, that's how we have evil. You know, Albert Einstein did a great job of explaining to his professor as a young college student that cold was also a name that we came up with. because it is the absence of heat. We measure heat. We don't measure cold. We measure light. We don't measure darkness. I love the analogy between cold and heat and light and darkness and God and evil. That's right. God and evil. Good is God. Everything that is good is of God. You know, his mercies are new each day. And that's what I was sharing with Kat. And I said we'd get to Kat here. She's with me in studio. And obviously it's hard to be across the desk from Kat Peterson as she joins me, because I don't know how long this is going to be. I don't think it's going to be for much longer. I'm about ready to be pushed away from the dock and set to sail on my own, my maiden voyage. I'll be in studio one day, Kat, without you in studio with me. And I'll be driving and, you know, as I said last week, fumbling, bumbling, and stumbling. But I think I'm going to be up to speed by the time that you no longer show up here. But it's good to have you here. How was your Thanksgiving?
I'm glad I'm in studio today. Thanks so much, David Paul Blumenshine, for having me. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I started out here at Cities 92.9, right there behind the board, like you are this afternoon. I was here on Thursday, Thanksgiving morning, and I talked about the Thanksgiving story and
That's
the
right.
true story behind Thanksgiving. So I went into a little bit of historical context, and it's so like all I'm thinking about as your show is going on today, where you're talking about how God is good. He is not the author of evil. Evil is something that we've come up with to give it a name because it's the absence of God. It's the absence of good, which is evil. And that's kind of the way the world looked. Well, the New World, the United States of America looked without the Pilgrims who came to America. So I talked a little bit about the Pilgrims and the Indians because the grade school story that we were all fed was just false. And I didn't know that until I got into the history and read this amazing piece done by the Federalist, and also took a listen to Rush Limbaugh's The True Story of Thanksgiving. But to be a pilgrim here in the United States, the absence of God was very much apparent here in the United States when the Indians were here. They did not believe in God. Indians were a lot of them were they believed in many gods.
Pollyannas? Is that what you're trying to say?
Polyamorous is having multiple partners, but
polytheism.
Polytheism.
Yes, polytheism.
And a lot of them believed in things like human sacrifice or taking out the organs of the people and bringing them to the sun gods or to the moon gods and things like that. So there was an absence of God here prior to the Pilgrims. So that's what I'm thinking about this morning or this afternoon on the David Paul Blumenshine show, as you're talking about the absence of God is evil. That was so apparent once they came over on the Mayflower in the 1600s.
Yeah. Well, and it was a new world. And once again, as Einstein pointed out to his professor, historically, there are a lot of smart people. And Kat, of course, has to give me subtle reminders still. But I know that we are going to break again. And here we go. We will be back. Kat is in studio. We're going to let her continue about Skonto. We want to hear a little bit more about this when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Okay, I think we're in a little longer break this time. Hey, appreciate you all joining us here on the Facebook side of things. I'm going to cut to break. I want to catch up with Kat for a minute. Catch up with Kat. How about that? But we will be back shortly here at Cities 92.9, and I will be back on the air as I'm looking. There it is. All right. So many moving pieces, so little time. It's only a 2-hour show, but then you throw me in the midst of running the board, and this show, it seems like it's over in like 10 minutes. I'm so confused. I'm sorry. I'm still learning. So if that seemed a little awkward, it was. It was awkward for me. Thank God I got Kat in studio with me because she pointed out I got so captivated by her story. I don't know about you. You need to go back and listen to that. You can always catch any of the city's shows, any of them on there's an app out there. You can download the app. We have it cataloged. You can go and find the shows. If you missed the Thanksgiving special that Kat did on Thursday morning, I was listening to it. I too was sharing to many people the Rush Limbaugh, the true meaning of not only Christmas, but Thanksgiving. No, he did the true meaning of Thanksgiving, where he got to the heart of the matter, the facts. Similar to Albert Einstein as a student when he was letting his professor know that not on my watch, right? I'm smart enough to realize that what you're saying as a sociology professor, that there is some science behind it, and you don't have to be a biologist or a chemist or a physicist. But I think that Albert was a physicist, one of the greatest that's ever walked on the face of this earth. And he challenged the professor. He pushed back on him. Now many will tell you that Albert Einstein was not a Christian man by any means. In fact, isn't it fascinating that neither was Abraham Lincoln going into the Civil War?
Mm.
It was what he experienced, what he saw right before his eyes. He saw a nation divided. And he gave the speech, a house divided cannot stand. That wasn't Abraham Lincoln coming up with, some prose, of his own doing. He got that from Holy Scripture. He learned that. And Kat was recounting the Thanksgiving story, and I want her to go ahead and walk that out just a little bit more because, many of us are challenged by understanding what we were taught. I'm going to give you an example of that real quick, Kat, and I want to get to you. Is this morning, Kat and I were at church at the Tabernacle. Pastor Timothy James Farrell was doing the Victorious Life. Both of us are in studio with our Tabernacle shirts, or Tabernacle Church shirts on. I have a hoodie sweatshirt. It's getting a little hot. I might have to take it off. And of course, underneath my Tabernacle Church sweatshirt is my Tabernacle long sleeve shirt. So I'm ready, Kat.
You're ready to go.
I'm ready. But what we learned today, which unbeknownst to me, was this song, Joy to the World. The Lord is come. Let earth receive her king. Now, it took me to get to 60 years of age before I realized just today. So let's see, timestamp it. That was around 11 o'clock today, 10:45, 11 o'clock, where Pastor Timothy James Farrell challenged the congregation that the Joy to the World was a song about the second coming, not the first coming, not the birth of Christ, but his return to earth. And so I quickly had to do, as I sometimes do when I'm listening to Pastor Timothy James Farrell, I said, I'm pretty certain that he's spot on because he's taught me so many things. I had to fact check Pastor Timothy James Farrell. And right there, Joy to the World, Sir Isaac Watts, I don't know if it's plural, Watt. This was back in the 1700s. He came up, he inked this song based on the 98th Psalm. The 98th Psalm. He came up with the words to this song where it's actually talking about Christ coming a second time, not Christ being born of the Virgin and then, of course, becoming the Savior of the world, which he is, but it's his second coming. But it's things like this, like Einstein, like Abraham Lincoln, like so many of those people from the old world, the new world, the old world. And you were talking about that on your show. And I know that was a long way to get to you, Kat, but pick up where we left off. I know we got cut short.
It's incredible how in public school and, how that Joy to the World song is shoved down your throat as a Christmas song. And it's about the birth of Christ, but it's not. It's about the second coming of Christ, which I think that people don't want us to know that the second coming of Christ is coming.
It's coming.
I don't think that they want
There's
us to
nothing
know
you can
about
do to
it.
stop it. It's coming.
Much like they don't want to talk about how Abraham Lincoln was a longtime atheist and then turned into a Christian after seeing the evil unfold that was the Civil War. And then also Albert Einstein. I always thought
Not
that
created
he
by
was,
God, of course, that evil.
yeah, and the public school system will tell you that Albert Einstein was like some sort of evolutionist and
Yeah.
that he was an atheist and
Agnostic. I don't know. Some people
don't
say
think they-
atheist, but I think it was agnostic because he was so brilliant
Mhm.
in his thought process. It wasn't he was denying God.
Well, and so
He
many
was set out to try to prove
Yeah.
there was a God.
And so many scientists have actually they've created something called the fine tuning theory, and they don't talk about that in school, about how a lot of scientists actually believe that there's no way Earth could be Earth without a maker because it's so perfectly tuned. It's much like if you tune a watch or
Mhm.
if you fine tune a watch, it's got so many different parts and moving parts in it. It's got to be mathematically uh, it's mathematically created. If the world just spins off its axis by like 0.0000001%, if it weren't on its axis just the way it's supposed to be, then it would just all fall apart. So anything that precise needs to have a maker, a designer. So a lot of like scientists actually believe in that fine-tuning theory, and I think Albert Einstein talked about it. I don't think it actually was like a refined theory until later. But anyway, so yeah, public school, everybody in your life will try to derail you from these ideas, from these truths.
Yeah. Well, it's a
and
narrative, right? I mean, here we still have a good portion of the world's population does not believe in the first coming,
yes,
including what is happening in Israel as we speak.
Mhm,
The Jews do not believe in the first coming of Christ.
mhm.
The Arabs, those people of Ishmael, they do not believe in a Messiah.
Mhm.
In fact, that's the whole essence of the warring, right? Is the land that they believe was promised to them, each side having a difference of who was promised the land. Now, as Christians, Judeo-Christians, our entire faith came from Judaism.
Mhm.
So as Christians, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that God destined Israel to be the land of the Jews.
Yeah.
There's no questions about that.
Mhm.
It's fascinating when we go back in the Wayback Machine and we look at the pilgrims coming to this land, the New World, right?
Yeah.
Escaping a small group of settlers, truly. It wasn't like a mass of people. It wasn't a massive humanity. In
No.
fact, the
40.
100, 40
Maybe.
plus additional support people, men and women, children. So they say, if you look at the size, any replicas of the Mayflower, you look at those ships that they came to the New World in, and that they housed 130, 140 people. You're like, where? It was like Gilligan's Island size, and we know how many people were on Gilligan's Island, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So they were on a small vessel
Mhm.
seeking the New
I think
World.
it was 50 feet, the Mayflower.
Yes.
About 50 feet, and 102 people were
Yes.
aboard. And then
Yes.
the Pilgrims, they fled religious persecution, and the Church of England, and they fled it, and they went to Holland, and then they came to the New World. So they were in Holland, for I think it was like 11 years or something like that before they came over to the New World, which was not taught. None of this was taught, and that's it's not taught that evil is actually the absence of God. It's not even really taught that cold is the absence of heat. We
Yeah.
don't talk about that, and I think that the reason
Because it's cold outside.
Yes.
We defined everything as I'm cold.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing too. I think that there without understanding the word evil and giving a name to it, we wouldn't really understand, the love and the free will that we have and things like that. I don't think that we would really be able to love as deeply as we do without the knowledge of evil and giving it a term. So that was actually something I learned one of my religious classes years ago was that uh, evil exists, and it does, uh, but the term exists. And really, what it is, it's the absence of God. And the reason why we have a word for it is so that way we could have an opposite, which is good and which is love and which is free will and living as and loving as deeply as we do as human beings. So yeah.
No,
Anyway, so I
no,
think that the Thanksgiving, Abraham Lincoln being an atheist and then converting to Christianity, Albert Einstein actually schooling his professor when it came to, evil existing. I think all of this is purposefully not taught. Joy to the World, not being taught to people as this is actually a song about the second coming.
yeah.
It's all done on purpose to keep you in the dark.
Well, and you're right. Here you have evil is a result of the absence of divine love. God is love. I love the discussions I have with people when I'm out on the streets, and we're talking about this, or whether I'm having a discussion on social media, that God is love. When people say, "What is love?" I say, God is love. Love is not love. Love cannot manifest itself from what?
Yeah. What is
Nothing.
that? What is that?
How can
That's
God?
God.
God is love. In fact, it even says in scripture over and over again, God is love.
Mhm.
That is, I believe, one of the absolute truths of life, and therefore divine love in the human heart. That's what differentiates us from all other creatures, right?
Mhm.
Is the love. Now we understand that animals care for when they're young,
Mhm.
that's a natural instinct. But love is so much greater than that because God is love.
Mhm.
And it's the manifestation of God in today's time. And that's what the world was experiencing in the days of the Pilgrims, in the days of Abraham Lincoln, in the days of Einstein. This battle, this dispute. And isn't it amazing? It's always about God.
Mhm.
It's never about anything else. That's what this professor was trying to point out to his students, that God himself, because he created all things. And if he created all things, then evil is something he created. No.
No. And if you were to be a pilgrim, take yourself back to the 16th century or the 1600s. If you were to go back and be a pilgrim, you would understand that the absence of God was very apparent here in the New World with the Indians because they did not worship God. They were not godly people. They believed that, hey, if I cut out this guy's heart and sacrifice it to the sun gods, there will be sun for uh there will be sun for this year's harvest, right? That is what they believed, that they were a polytheist theism. They believed in multiple gods. They believed in the sun gods, more specifically. But Massasoit, who's this amazing Indian leader, I think that he was moved actually when the pilgrims, because they were so on fire for God, they were just such devout Christians. Now Massasoit, he was kind of being selfish in letting the pilgrims stay because he had uh, a political gain. He could be politically benefited by the pilgrims staying. But I think that they were just so bright, the pilgrims, that Massasoit was like, well, I guess I won't kill him right away because I don't know. Something makes me not want to kill these guys right away. And I honestly believe it was the presence of God, which stopped them from cutting down all of the pilgrims as soon as they got there because they could have,
That's
but they
right.
didn't.
Because when light comes into the world, the darkness knows it.
Yeah.
That's how you measure light.
Hmm.
You don't measure darkness. Hey, I want to talk about this little secret that's out there now about AT&T. It's not really a secret, and I hope that you don't believe it to be a secret. Um, they've been surveilling you. It's now out there. They're not even hiding it any longer. But we're going to talk about that when we come back here from break at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. All right. All right. Back at you here. Let me turn down my headphones because I can hear those. Um, hey, thank you all for joining me here today. I'm going to get back up to the comments so I can see who's joining us. So appreciate you joining us. Definitely go out there on any of our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, Twitter. Like, share, subscribe, smash the like button. This is how we bring this content to you. You know, you're not going to hear other media outlets throughout the central Illinois area talking about topics such as this, content such as this. They're always going to give you the mainstream drive-by media, legacy media reporting that they want to do, which is manufactured news. Some people call it fake news. In fact, my favorite president calls it fake news. But as you can see over my shoulder, there might be a thing that says, oh, wait a second, let me move the microphone this way. There we go. Oh, that's right there, Farmers for Trump. It is the harvest season, so we're gonna continue to recognize who stands with the farmers. In fact, he stands with the military. He stands with so many. But like I said, we're not going to hear about Trump reporting. You're only going to hear about the negative side of Trump always. In fact, they're running out of content. They've gone so hard at it. And granted, these indictments have failed miserably. In fact, if it's done anything, it's actually improved his popularity. So, um, yeah, that's that. I got to keep an eye on the clock. We're going to come back. When we come back uh, here in studio, we're going to have a brief little period of time to talk about this article from AT&T, or it's actually from Just the News about AT&T and all the craziness that's going on there. He's not here yet, is he? 155. He'll probably send me a text. So, which is going to be interesting, Kat, when I am flying solo, that I will be. Oh, here we go. We're back on here. Well, you know what? I covered this earlier, and I have to always be mindful of this. And it's something that popped up on my social media feed this morning as one of my memories. It talks about that not all of us are experiencing the joy of the season and the holidays. And I want to encourage you to be prayerfully, or I should say, in prayer for others always, because so many people are struggling and you see it manifested in so many ways, whether it's through anger, through disgust, through disappointment, through ugliness. It's the culture that we live in, unfortunately. And this is what, the greatest minds have encountered throughout humanity. People, you know, for every people problem, there is people solutions. I find it very interesting that Joe Biden, Vice President Biden, um, is out there trying to build bridges. You remember the bridge builder before that was Barack Obama, President Obama. He was going to build the bridge, uh, close the Great Divide, and unfortunately, there is no closing that divide through man. Man cannot close that divide. The ugliness that's been created, the vitriol, the rhetoric, the hostile rhetoric that's coming out. Uh, has reached a level that is, when they call it extreme, that people are the extreme mega or mega extremists, the extremism isn't about make America great again. In fact, I'm pretty certain for the most part that people in the Make America Great Again movement are not about extremes. They're about their nation. That's hence the name, Make America Great. They're about American values. They're about the American way. They're about America's exceptionalism. And America is exceptional. There is no other nation like it. When you look throughout history, there is a reason that the United States of America has been under attack as long as it has, because it's what we were founded on, the principles, who we are as a people. We happen to have done so much throughout human history, whether that's in education, in hospitals, in research, in advancement of culture. America has always been a leader. There's a reason they call us a superpower. And with a superpower comes a great responsibility. And that's what we are currently dealing with in humanity right now, is that there is such a conflict amongst people as they battle their way through everything. And that's why I enjoy this season. It's an opportunity to take a step back, to be thankful for all the advancements, right, wrong, or indifferent, because it is a cumulative, it's a culmination, it's a cumulative advancement of all the things that we have been over time have led us to where we're currently at today. We are a sum of everything that has transpired over human history. Now, we can have discussions on how long human history is. We can have a lot of discussions about right, wrong, or indifferent, how it's interpreted, why some people view it with one set of eyeballs and another with another set of eyeballs. That's also part of what has been going on for a long time. No different than the example I gave with Einstein in his classroom as a young student with his professor. He was learned enough to understand that his professor was outside of his realm of expertise. So he challenged him. He pushed back. Those discussions are being stifled. They're being muted. We don't do that here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We're going to continue to get out ahead of all these stories. I believe that's something that we do better than anybody else, especially when it comes to conservative values, because I will tell you that I am a Christian conservative first and foremost. Whether I vote for a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, or the Green Party is purely by the principles and the policies they stand for. I believe that the most advantageous way of existing is through a constitutional republic. It's been tried and proven over time. There's nothing like the parchment paper that was inked called the Constitution of the United States, because ultimately behind the Constitution is you and me, the people. And without the people, there is no Constitution. Hey, I can see right outside my window that my friend and colleague and so many other adjectives I can apply to him is here, Dan Calkins. He's going to be talking about the Second Amendment. He has a lawsuit, and it is one of the only lawsuits in the state of Illinois that has reached the level of the Supreme Court. So we're going to bring Dan into studio here after break, and he is going to give us an update. Yes, it is the DPB show. I'm David Paul Blumenshine here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. And when I say beyond, that's because we've got something new going on. I should say it's relatively new. We've been doing it for a while now. You might be aware of this. You might not. You just don't have to tune in to 92.9 on your radio. You can download the app always. That's been for a very long time. But now we are live on Facebook. In fact, I'm looking at myself. It's kind of disconcerting at times to do that, but you know what? I take it for what it is. So we've got Facebook, we've got Rumble, we've got YouTube and Twitter. We're live on all those, and we need you to go out and like, subscribe to those channels. As I've said, you know what? The pressure is on, the heat is on. I get it. We have had this culture of craziness going on now for at least the last 20 years. And it slowly is building and building and building. And the worst is yet to come, but the best is yet to come. We know those things interact, they exist, similar to hot and cold, light and dark, God and evil. They coexist. But we can't do what we do here at Cities and continue to bring you the content that is not being played anywhere else. I mean, granted, you've got your Chicago station up there that does a little bit of conservative talk radio. You've got your station in St. Louis that does a little conservative talk radio. But really, for the most part, here in the central Illinois, the heart of Illinois, there aren't places that are broadcasting, that are covering the angles, the stories, the way that we do at Cities 92.9. And for us to continue to do that, we need you to support us. And we need you to be our mouthpieces. We need you to be out there telling people to like, subscribe, not only to our content, but if you know of somebody that you think can benefit from advertising with us, by all means, do that. We have so many successful advertisers who think and support what we do. They like what we do. So enough with that. I know that this has been an hour of fast-moving conversation, especially as it pertains to history. This Thanksgiving Day weekend, we are thankful. And one of the things I'm most thankful for, as I said before we went to break, is the Constitution, the parchment paper, because it is nothing more than a piece of paper if there aren't people behind the law, the principles, the amendments, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. Without it, what are we? You think that things are bad now. What would they be without our constitutional republic to defend our rights? And with me in studio, as promised, is State Representative of the 88th District. That's the House District here in Illinois, down in Springfield. He resides near Decatur, is Dan Calkins. And Dan's going to bring us up to speed about his lawsuit that he put forth. And we're going to just walk through that. But before that, Dan, how was your Thanksgiving? Oh, hold on, Dan. I got to get all these mics on. There we go. I think Dan, once again, how was your Thanksgiving? Dan, that was my fault. I've got to push the buttons over here.
It's okay.
I'm learning to ride the bicycle without training wheels, Dan.
Well, it's okay. I'm used to the buttons not getting pushed in Springfield when it's my turn to speak.
Boom. Where's the drum roll when you need it? Golly.
Please push the button.
Please push the button.
Mr.
Any button.
Speaker.
Actually, just push a button.
Mr. Speaker, please.
Yes, yeah.
No, it's great. Thank you. We had a very relaxing Thanksgiving. Went to several of our friends' homes and got to be with family friends for the day. Obviously overate 2 or 3 times.
Well, it's easy to do. You know what the average caloric intake is on a Thanksgiving day?
I wouldn't want to know.
4,500.
That's because Kat covered it on her show.
Oh,
I borrowed it from Kat's show over the weekend.
stealing her-
4,500
stealing
calories. What kind of treadmill do you have to get on to get rid of 4,500 calories?
Well, you'd have to run 28 miles to burn.
I think that's right. You have to do a marathon, not just a turkey trot.
Oh,
No.
man.
Dan, were you running any turkey trots down there in
No,
Decatur? Did you
no.
guys attend any turkey trots?
No, we didn't. They had a couple of them. Our Fleet Feet friends that own the shoe store down there, they have a Turkey Day deal, and it was good. But no, I'm more of a take a drive or ride a motorcycle.
Well, Dan, obviously we had you come in today because I know the public is concerned about, especially our listening audience. I think there are a few people that really would like to see JB's, uh, Governor Pritzker's, uh, gun ban stand, uh, on assault rifle, or on, is it assault, just assault rifle? It's magazines. And you, what am I talking about? I got the expert here. You were there. You're sitting in, you heard the law, you voted on it, and therefore you know more about it. So give the audience an idea of what exactly the ban is about.
Well, the ban is about semi-automatic weapons, not just.
Hold on, I'm
Our-
Kat's going to raise your arm up a little bit because you're fading. If you're fading in my ear, you're going to fade in the audience's ear.
We're gonna switch mics.
Yeah,
How's that?
that's always a good idea. I like that.
Well, that way we ease Kat on out.
That's right. Kat decided to check out. Kat, I don't
That'll
want
never
you
work.
checking out all the way. Look at her. She's
She's going to adjust this. Working now.
there. Yep, you got it. Now go ahead.
I don't hear it in my ears, but that's okay.
I'm going to turn you up. Because you probably turned off a button. I probably hit too many buttons over here.
I don't know, but it's okay. Yeah, we were, the bill, the law now is not just about rifles, but it's also shotguns, any pistol that has a magazine over 15 rounds. And then it's the bits and parts and pieces. You have to register springs and trigger assemblies. And I mean, it's a very poorly written law that they just threw everything into it. The anti-Second Amendment people just made a wish list, and it didn't come from Springfield. I'm sure it came out of Washington, D.C. or New York. And they threw everything they could, just threw it all in the big pot and wrote it up in a hasty manner and rammed it through the House and the Senate and the House. And, the governor rushed to the rotunda to sign it, to make it effective immediately.
One bill was it 75 pages? Was the entirety of that bill, or was it more than that?
Oh, I think it's more than that.
Okay.
I think it's like 200 and some pages because it has pictures and all these wonderful things in it. And
for those that can't follow the simple instructions, colored pictures, right, Dan?
Well, I think they're black and white. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, wait a minute. It's the state of Illinois. We will go to all levels of spending your money to get you colored copies of those
probably true.
photos.
Probably true. So anyway, the bill was passed, signed into law immediately, which then nobody knew how it was going to be interpreted because they put all these bills together and then they say, okay, go out and make the rules on how you're going to enforce the law. And it's been a real struggle. It's been a real struggle to get what are the parameters, who's actually going to enforce this law. And the only thing that we know for certain are what the penalties are. So it's been taken to court by various attorneys, various groups on the state side.
So all of your political action committees, there's the rifle committees, there's the Gun Saves Lives. All of those folks are just as concerned about this legislation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. GSL, ISRA, Illinois State Rifle Association, FFL, Illinois, the firearms licensed dealers, NRA. There's also some national Second Amendment rights groups that have supported us in our pursuit of justice to get this law overturned. It's clearly unconstitutional. I'm sure that they knew it was unconstitutional when they passed it. They were just trying to sneak something by, trying to make life miserable for the people that respect the law, respect the Constitution. Every gun owner in Illinois, every person in Illinois that owns a gun legally has gone through a process. They've gotten their FOID card, which has now been declared unconstitutional in other states, but they got the FOID card. They obeyed the law. They went and got the FOID card. When you purchase a firearm, you have to go through the Illinois State Police, who then take your application to the FBI. So you get a background check twice. You get a state police background check. You get a federal background check. Anytime any one of us has purchased a rifle or a pistol or a shotgun, we've gone through this. It's a lawful process. So here we go. And I haven't, so the law gets passed. We're watching it, fighting it.
And you had so many lawsuits were filed
Correct.
locally. So within jurisdictions, yours was filed in Macon County, correct?
Correct.
There were ones that were filed in Effingham, and I don't know all the different
Effingham and White County.
Yes.
There was a lawsuit filed, obviously, up in Naperville with that gun owner, the gun store owner up there.
Which leads to, and I hate to just jump on this because we'll come back to it, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
So Governor Pritzker, through his attorney general, were actually hoping to create legislation. I don't know if that went through, that if you were going to bring a lawsuit such as this, there were only going to be 2 counties in the state of Illinois where you could bring lawsuits against the governor or the state of Illinois.
Correct. And it started, I think, during COVID.
Yes.
With the mask mandates and all the closures. And then when this gun law passed, then we started seeing lawsuits all over the state of Illinois. So they went back to the General Assembly and passed another bill, and it became law, that says that if you want to sue the state of Illinois, you have to do it either in Sangamon County or in Cook County, the district courts in those 2 counties. Now, those 2, they're not equipped to handle lawsuits from 100 different counties. Quite frankly, I think it's unconstitutional that you can't go to your local court to get justice.
But what does it mean, the Constitution, so far, as we've seen in Illinois? Because you can do anything and force people like yourself to sue the governor for your constitutional rights, like this particular lawsuit that you filed.
Right.
And I know that there was a squabble because there was somebody that's been in studio with me. I consider him a friend, and Tom DeVore. He had his lawsuit.
Tom had the first 2.
Had the first 2. You then went and did you attach yourself to his lawsuit?
No.
Or you guys were never attached?
No, we were never attached. But I had supported Tom in his run for Illinois Attorney General, had been at several rallies as you had with Tom. So we had a friendly relationship. And the very day that he got the first TRO, the restraining order in Effingham, we had him on a live Zoom that night, and we're celebrating
with the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah, with the Freedom Caucus, celebrating his victory and what it meant. And I just kind of jokingly said, "Man, we ought to do this in Macon County." And he took me up. I mean, he said, "Don't just sit there. I mean, go do it."
Yeah.
So a couple days later, I started looking for an attorney and found one. And we looked at his lawsuit, and his lawsuit was the basis for ours. And I called Tom up and I let him know. I said, "Hey, we're going to do something here in Macon County where it's not exactly what you did, but it's our own version of what you did. And I want to pay you. I want to pay you for the work that you did to get this lawsuit settled." I said, "I put aside $5,000 out of our fund to pay you for the use of your work." And he laughed and he said, I've got enough money. He says, we're fine. You don't have to pay me anything. So off we went. We went about it a different way. And our attorney, Jerry Stocks, and that law firm went about it based on the 14th Amendment, which was equal protection.
Yes.
Just quickly, why is someone like me or anyone who has the background, the experience, I've got 22 years of military experience, why are we prohibited from enjoying our Second Amendment rights when a sheriff's deputy or a state police trooper or a prison guard gets to keep their Second Amendment rights? And on top of that, I have no way to earn that back. And that was the basis of our lawsuit in Macon County. If we'd have brought a Second Amendment lawsuit to Macon County, like others had taken Second Amendment lawsuits to the state courts, they were immediately pushed off. And that's how we got into the East St. Louis federal court system or the other lawsuits. So our lawsuit was not about the Second Amendment, although it was, because the Second Amendment guarantees me the rights to be able to keep and bear arms as long as I'm, a good citizen. And we can argue
a law,
about that.
A law-abiding citizen.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So we filed our lawsuit, had our oral arguments, and the judge in Macon County sided with us.
Well, and when that music bumps like that,
Right.
Dan, you know what that means.
Means it's time for a break.
That means it's time to go to break. And Dan, I want to continue this conversation because there's so many little intricacies. I don't know if we'll get to them all today, but we're going to try, or we're going to make an attempt at it, because there's a lot of details I think that you can give us of the current situation and where it's at. But we're going to do that when we come back from break here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. If you feel inclined, join us on the other side at Facebook. We're going to talk a little bit, kind of the inside baseball to things. But you can do that by listening to us over there. But we will be back shortly after a word from our sponsors. Okay, so Kat's over there twisting. Kat, what I find, yeah, well, the thing is, I keep the arm up. Go higher with the arm. There you go. Go higher with the arm, and then he can get closer to it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can actually lower the arm a little bit. He probably just to see his head. There you go. All right. So he's on mic. He's on mic too. Okay. Yep. There you go. And then hit you on red live. Okay.
So I'm fasting.
Okay, Dan. Now you're back live, and we're in the studio with our Facebook audience. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. If you have an opportunity, comment. If you have a question for Dan, I'd love to take your questions. It looks like we've got a few more people that have jumped into the chat. Appreciate you for joining us. Let's see here. Oh boy, Brad, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you and your family had an amazing Thanksgiving. Let's see what this one says here. And the sad thing is Pritzker and his family own a range in Wisconsin where they shoot high-powered rifles such as AR-15.
Well, it's actually his sister.
Yeah.
And they don't speak.
His
sister is.
They're not on speaking terms?
No, she's estranged from JB and that part of the family.
It's interesting how that happens in the world of politics, because I know that, it also happens too with the Kinzinger family. Right. The Kinzinger family is very steeped in the central Illinois area, but yet they have basically written a letter to Adam, and he talked about it in the book that he wrote.
Did he?
It's interesting to see.
So I think JB's sister built that range, that complex, close to the Illinois border.
Yeah.
It's kind of a way to flip off her brother.
There you go.
So now you just come across over here to Freedom Land in Wisconsin. But yeah, no, they don't get along.
Yeah.
Oh, him and his sister don't get along?
No.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Here we go. We're going to go back live here in a second.
Oh, okay. We're going to speed this up as we get through here, because I want to get to the Supreme Court.
Dan Calkins wants to do a new intro. Go ahead, Dan. We'll do it live on the air so our audience can hear you. Since you're going to do a new intro for my song,
I want to record a new intro.
New bump music from Dan. Go ahead, Dan. Give him a new intro.
Live, the DPB show, direct from Bloomington Normal to you.
That's right. There we go.
By way of China.
By the way of China. TikTok. Dan, that you bring that up, and I haven't been able to cover it, but there's an article in Just the News today. That millions of Americans, of course, as soon as I pull it up, it disappears. But don't worry, the fanciness of this high-powered computer in my hand, which is what the article is about, that millions of Americans are having their phone records assessed by a secret surveillance program. And of
Yes.
course, it's through AT&T and Phone Network are having their phone calls monitored by surveillance program called DAS, Data Analytical Services, which has had coordination with federal and local law enforcement agencies. Dan, if anyone out there doesn't realize
Right.
that if you're carrying this little device around with you,
Yeah.
they are, you can put it in a Faraday bag. You can do whatever you think you're doing to protect your personal information, your privacy. That went out the door with you agreeing with the company to have this. They
Right.
own everything. The only way to not do it is probably go back to a rotary phone. And even then,
BlackBerry.
they
I don't know if they could do that with the
you
BlackBerry.
yeah, well, and that's probably why BlackBerry is not as popular any longer
I have
as
one.
yeah, well,
I just don't use
or
it.
a flip phone. I don't know if they can do that with a flip phone. No, they can
Sure
do it
they
with any
can.
phone. They were doing it. They were tapping lines for decades.
Well,
Phone
it's
lines.
all stored. I mean, everything was stored.
Yeah.
After 9/11, we passed what was the law? The surveillance law.
Patriot Act.
Yeah,
right?
the Patriot Act.
Well, this gives me an opportunity because I don't think I told my audience, Dan, that when I was down, and I know that we Dan, don't worry, we've got a lot of time here. We're going to get to your lawsuit because
That's
I think
fine.
it's important our audience hears where it currently is.
Yep.
But
Real quick,
go ahead.
I've got to share something with Dan because
Okay.
you're gonna love this. I was standing in a parade. It was in Joliet, and it's a huge parade. And there's this guy. He's in all kinds of tactical gear, and he's a police officer, and he's carrying around an AR-15, just open carrying around an AR-15, right?
Right.
Somebody in my family, my brother, he looks at it and he goes, "That's an AR-15," and I go, "Mm-hmm," and then he goes, "Wait, I thought I couldn't have one of those." And he goes, "He can't have one either." And I go, "No, no, 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 no."
No.
That's
I go,
not how the law was written.
I go,
No.
Dan Calkins tried to argue your point, John, in the Illinois Supreme Court, and they shut him down because they're delirious. Like, it's called equal protection under the law. And he was, whoa, that's an AR-15. And I go, yeah. And he goes, those aren't supposed
It
to
might
be
have
around.
been an M4.
Yeah.
Could have been an automatic.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
they have the legal right to carry one.
Yeah.
Now, before we get too far back into the conversation about Dan's lawsuit, I have to tell this story about Donald Trump Jr. basically pointing out to everyone at the book signing that he had down in Effingham.
Oh, yeah.
He was there on behalf of Darren Bailey. And the first thing he said when he walked in the room, he had his hands apart like his dad does sometimes. And he says, Darren, he goes, "I can't believe how well we did here." He goes, "You really bring a crowd. I didn't realize there was this many Republicans in Illinois." I thought that was great. Then the next thing he said was telling. No, he said, "Folks, if you weren't on the watch list before tonight, you entered this building with your cell phone. You now are welcome to the
Right.
Trump 2024 campaign because we're surveilling everything. If Donald Trump Jr. moves, his daughter, any of them, they are trying. They need everything they can. They're pulling out
Right.
all devices. Everything goes against the Trump family. So, hey, I know we're going to be back, and Dan's going to stay here. He's with us until the top of the hour, and he's going to get back into the lawsuit. We want to hear that his lawsuit is the only lawsuit that has made it to the Supreme Court
From Illinois.
from Illinois. I'm sorry. Thank you. hold on. I gotta get our mics back on, Dan.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Now the audience can hear you. I'm sorry.
it's
I turn off the red ones. I get that right, but then I don't turn us on.
It's fine.
But Dan said he's going to break his fast. He's going to go out to Mugsy's and have onion rings.
Onion rings and chicken wings.
There you go, Phil, at
So if you
Mugsy's.
wanna
I just
come
gave you
watch-
a shout out. So hopefully maybe you can throw a few dollars over to the city's 92.9
It would be
into our coffers so
it would
we
be
can
well worth
continue
their
to
while.
promote you and the Bills. And
The
it's
Bills. It's the Mafia.
The
Buffalo Bills Mafia. It is the official Illinois home of the Buffalo Bills Mafia.
Nice.
There you
And they
go.
put the flag up, and we've got the TV, and we've got the little Josh candle that they light.
Oh my goodness.
All the rituals.
Wow.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And people that have come from Buffalo come and live here,
yeah.
and they come find us.
Yeah.
And then they bring these foods that only you find in Buffalo. There's these cookies and candy.
Have you met Scott Harder yet?
I don't think so.
He's with Atlas Van Lines. See, I'm just promoting all of these
There you go,
businesses that
another
need to
good
be
business.
advertising with us.
We shouldn't be promoting a van line, though.
No.
Unless you're moving in. If you're listening and you're
Scott
moving in,
Scott will tell you about that. He's got I'd like to get him in studio and talk about all the appointments he's gone out to give bids on the Exit Illinois. It's crazy, but let's see. Let me check here and VPN. I have it on all my devices.
What are options for people who purchased AR blowers?
that's called a part, and the parts have to be, every part has to be registered. So
You
it's
might
not.
want to read this one on air then.
I mean, it's
Okay,
just but that's the thing. I mean, you can have a hand guard, you can have any part that goes to any of these guns considered, and there's a whole list of them.
You know what I want Regan to do when she gets in? I want her to make silencers a thing. Those are fun.
Well, it's coming. It's coming through the federal government.
Through the federal government.
Through the federal government.
We're-
And they're really not silencers, they're suppressors.
Suppressors, yeah.
Because they're not silent. They're
Yeah.
just better for you hearing. If you-
Hearing
Yes.
wise. That's why I
Oh.
love them.
Yeah, no, it's much better for you.
Yeah, especially when you're at the range.
Oh, yeah.
I can't get enough
can't.
stuff in my ear.
I know. Well, I've got two. I do the
Yeah, I do the inner.
I
I
do
do
the-
the inner and
Yep.
the muffs.
I agree. Yeah, no, it's coming. I think there's a case. There's now a second case. I think there's a case in Texas that said that if the suppressor is made in Texas and someone in Texas owns it, it's not subject to the Interstate Commerce Clause, which the ATF is using. And now I think Missouri may have done the same thing. They may have passed a law in Missouri that says that if it's made in Missouri and it's in use in Missouri, it's not subject to the tax and registration.
Cool.
All right, we're going to go
Get
back
enough of
live here in a
those.
second.
You get enough of those, and then it.
I'm going to have to shorten my bump music because if not, we're not going to get to all the ground we need to cover with our guest, Dan Calkins. That's right. State Representative Dan Calkins is in studio with us today, and we're trying to get an update on this lawsuit that he filed on behalf of the people. Is it just you personally, or is
No.
it the people of Macon County,
No.
or is it the state of Illinois?
It's everyone. We filed our lawsuit. We had a group, legal gun owners of Macon County, about, 2,200 people, plus an owner of a pawn shop gun store, Perry Lewin, Decatur Pawn, Jewelry and Pawn. But the law, when the judge issued his final ruling, we didn't issue a TRO. We asked for a final ruling from our judge, and he issued a ruling that said the law was facially unconstitutional. And the word facially is a very legal term, very, very definitive term. And that means in all instances for all people.
Okay.
Now, our friend didn't want to talk about that. And obviously the attorney general and the governor didn't want to admit to that.
Yeah.
Which I think did a great disservice to the people of Illinois, because during that time frame, from when our judge issued his final order to the time that the Illinois Supreme Court issued their final order saying they disagreed and overturned his decision. The law was facially unconstitutional for every person in Illinois. And that's my opinion.
Well, and you know, and Dan, it's interesting because as someone that knows both you and former candidate for Attorney General Tom DeVore, you guys are both passionate. I mean, I get it. You guys are
Well,
you want to have your opinions be heard, and that's good. Now, I know that Tom believed that he could get into a legal battle, a legal argument in the court system of Illinois, and I think I've shared with you
Mhm.
this. That's how's that worked so far for us in Illinois?
well, it doesn't work. But we took a different track.
That's right.
And there's two different ways
That's
to
right.
approach these lawsuits.
That's right.
And the track that we took you didn't need discovery.
Yes.
Our track said, look, here are these people that have been denied their Second Amendment rights without due process, without, we were no way to get them back. 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
So that was our approach. And we didn't have to take depositions. We didn't have to present a whole bunch of scientific discovery. We just made our point. The judge agreed with us. And we went to the Illinois Supreme Court. We made our arguments there. And the Illinois Supreme Court disagreed with our lower court.
So
And so right now, I know you have a question, Kat.
really quick.
Go
Sure.
ahead. So
Go ahead.
so right now, currently, it is
Unconstitutional
constitutional.
because the Illinois Supreme Court overruled the district court in
Okay.
Macon County.
All right, go ahead, Kat. Kat had her hand up, so she gets called on.
Oh.
So, what is the approach going to be once it's up in the U.S. Supreme Court? So right
Okay.
now it's on the docket for the U.S. Supreme
Correct.
Court. Are you guys still going to argue the equal protection?
No. Well, it's part of it. What we're arguing, so we lost the highest level for us in Illinois is the
Yeah.
Illinois
Supreme Court, yes.
So there is no further place to appeal. There's no place else to go. We're
Mhm.
done.
Except the U.S. Supreme
Well,
Court.
but you can't really take it to the U.S. Supreme Court because it's an Illinois law and an Illinois court. You can go
Mm.
to the federal courts, which is what they're doing in East St. Louis and Naperville in the 7th Judicial Circuit. Our case, because it was about the Illinois Constitution, the constitutionality, and we argued several things, the three-day reading, and we argued the Second Amendment to a certain extent. There's no place else to go, except that two of the judges in the Illinois Supreme Court accepted over $1 million each from Governor Pritzker. They accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars from Speaker Welch. And now we're finding out that their campaigns were supported by this secret PAC that Senate President Harmon, his lawyer, controlled, who didn't even report the
Oh, Kat,
donation.
you know
Remember
about
that?
this, Kat.
I know this.
Kat, you know about
You
this a
broke
little
this
bit, right?
story.
Yes,
So
she
this
did.
is that money went into these two Supreme Court races. Our point is that we didn't get a fair hearing. That's how we went to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Go you! Yeah,
So we
that's
went to
awesome.
So we went to the U.S. Supreme Court saying, look, we asked these two judges to recuse themselves before we ever heard my case.
That's right.
We sent them letters. Each
Yes.
one.
No, I remember it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you covered that, Kat.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And they sent back a little snarky response that they don't have to.
No, well, they don't, because they have
Exactly.
proven over time right now that they do whatever they please.
Exactly. But our legal strategy was such that we set this up. We set this up before they ever heard our case.
Look at you.
Yeah.
That's
This
smart.
is our legal strategy.
Go you, Dan
I mean,
Calkins.
who is going to get a fair hearing in Illinois on a gun bill?
I
Yeah.
didn't know about the super.
Well,
PAC.
yeah.
That's
well,
incredible.
In Illinois, based on the political climate, how many times will we get anything
Right.
heard? Whether it's a bill positioned in the House, the Senate, they've got the old equivalent. The old saying is they can run the table. It's like that they don't even have an opponent.
You have just argued our case.
Yes.
So our case is based on three things at the U.S. Supreme Court. The legal precedent is called Caperton. And the Caperton case was settled in the U.S. Supreme Court when a person named Caperton had a case before a judge, and the person that he was suing had donated $1,000 to that judge's election campaign. And there were outside groups also supporting that person with the judge.
Mhm.
He took that case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, that's not fair. That's not equal justice. That judge was biased. Send that case back. And that's where Caperton comes from.
And
Cool.
Caperton, for those in our audience, is spelled Caperton. I'm actually looking at the case right now, Caperton, and with Massey Coal Company. Is
Right.
that right?
Yes.
Okay. In 2009,
Yeah.
it gives the standing number and everything else. United States Supreme Court held due process clause of the
Right. So Massey
14th
Coal
Amendment.
Company had given this judge $1,000, not a half a million, not $1 million, $1,000.
1,000.
And the Supreme Court found that the judge was the appearance of impropriety was such that they sent that case back on
In-
Caperton.
In fact, it says here, and I'm reading it, it
Yeah.
says it requires the judges to recuse themselves not only when actual bias has been demonstrated or when the judge has an economic interest in the outcome of the case,
Mm.
but also when extreme facts create the probability of a bias.
Mm.
Thank you.
There you go.
Go get them.
So here-
Well, you guys are playing like 4D chess over there.
Oh, yeah.
Your attorney.
Well,
He's
we're working
playing.
at it.
He's playing like 4D
But
chess
but
over here.
even then, Kat,
So there's three.
Go ahead.
There's three elements to our Supreme Court case. One is the contributions from the other co-equal branches of government. So we have the governor and the executive branch has given $1 million to each of these candidates.
Yeah.
Then we have the legislative branch, where the two leaders, the
which
House
is
and the
like
Senate-
you giving me $1,000 when the governor gives away $1 million.
Yeah. So then we have the two leaders of the legislative branch giving hundreds and hundreds, and now we find out millions of dollars through that
Through
secret
that super
PAC.
PAC.
Through
Yeah.
that secret
Don
PAC.
Harmon and what's the other legislator?
Well, it's his attorney.
Oh,
It was his attorney that ran the PAC. That when they got found out, they emptied the PAC, so there wasn't any money in it. But what the gentleman didn't know was the law changed, and he is now personally liable for that fine from the State Board of Elections.
boom.
Dan's getting geared up. I might have to find the dump button here. Hold on.
No.
Let me make
Yeah,
sure I have
sorry.
the dump button.
That's
When
an okay word for air.
Okay.
you can
Is
say,
that
well,
hyphenated? Is that a hyphenated?
no,
word?
well, you can say that on the air, but
Oh,
keep,
we're okay.
keep going.
So-
I mean,
So our case is based on three different facts.
Mhm.
One is the preponderance of campaign donations from the other two branches of government now influences the judicial branch.
Mm.
The other part of it is that these outside groups, the Moms Demand Action and Bloomberg Group, and there was a couple of other groups that not only endorsed, promoted these two candidates, two judges, and then after the election crowed about their biggest accomplishment in that election was getting these two Supreme Court justices elected in an anti-gun platform.
wow.
Okay.
Mm.
And then the third case is my Second Amendment rights. But it's a three-legged stool that we've gone to the U.S. Supreme Court on.
Nice.
And there's a reason that the DPB show, in its origination, said that Illinois is broken, and that corruption is what we like to talk about here. I mean, it's not that I like to talk about corruption,
Right.
but it's so easy. You have been steeped in it as a state representative. The thing I find fascinating about you, Dan Calkins, I mean, and it's no secrets here. Dan and I are very close friends.
Yeah.
We've been on the campaign trail for Darren Bailey. We've been on the campaign trail for his own campaign. I
Correct.
walked in a parade out in Aerosmith, Ellsworth for him many moons ago when I
got some heat for that, by the way.
well, of course you do. You have the Insurrection Radio supporting you. Now the Insurrectionist is going to be on the ballot in the 17th congressional district as a Trump delegate. So I'm sure that all of those people's heads are already exploding, and there's a lot of things. But my point being about you, Dan, is this: you're at the end of your career in the General Assembly.
One more year.
And you continue to fight for the people in Illinois, not only the people of the 88th district, but the people of the entire state of Illinois. You should be applauded for that, because that's what representation is about. Now, I know, Dan, that as you wind down in your career, you've seen pretty much everything that you're going to see, or have you? What else do you think's coming down the pipe besides the gun ban, the whole craziness of opening the borders? It appears to be that JB is trying to make new citizens. I don't even know the terminology they call them now. It's just bottom line at the end of the day is these people are here in our country and they came through our border illegally. And unfortunately, that's not what Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, that's not how Governor Pritzker is referring to them. I mean, there's a lot more that's going to come down the pipe.
Well, they're doing that because it's a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And they're fundraising off the federal government, which is us.
Yeah.
They want the federal government to give them more money so they can dole it out to their buddies. And that's really what this is all
or
about.
to Supreme Court justices. I
Well,
mean, bottom line is they just are doling out the money to everybody. And that's
Yeah.
what we need to do. We need to be that voice. Obviously, we have you down in Springfield raising Cain and letting your voice be heard. Now, granted, sometimes, unfortunately, with the makeup of the super minority that you're in, you're constantly losing loudly, but it doesn't mean you give up.
No.
And
We
I
can't
don't
give
think
up.
any of us can give up. In fact, I understand now the race in the 88th district between Regan and Chuck Erickson. You know, that's a safe seat. The District 53, a state Senate seat, safe seat. The 105th, safe seat. We've got a lot of safe seats. What can we do? And I know we're going to go to a break because you've been around this enough to get a gist of what are some of the next steps for Illinois if we're going to ever turn this thing back around, because it's definitely going in reverse. The clown car going in reverse at hyper warp speed right now. If we're going to at least slow the clown car down a little bit, what are some of the things we have to do, especially when it's not about these safe seats? How are we going to get the messaging out there? Because as my friend Dan Bongino says on his show, it's just not bad enough yet.
And I caught a lot of flack for that. I said that last year after the election. I said it's obviously not bad enough because people are still voting for the folks that are enslaving them, are taxing them out of their homes, are killing the good paying jobs in this state. And I don't know how bad it has to get. I think it's going to come sooner than later, though.
Well, Dan, I wouldn't let you off the radio today in the DPB show without getting, because you're here in studio, you're wearing your Dan Calkins state representative sweatshirt, but you also have a couple buttons promoting your candidate for the race in the 88th. And I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about Regan and the candidacy and why you think she is the person to replace you. And granted, I mean, is replacing. I mean, we have a replacement theory all over the place, but we're going to talk more about that when we come back here at Cities 92, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond.
And beyond.
And beyond. All right, we've got a lot more to cover here before the end of the show. Just like that, we are at the end of the show, Dan. Can you believe it?
Already?
It's amazing. You start getting over here running
know.
the magical Christmas tree board, and it brings you it's quickly. It's like time is expedited. Dan, you just
Good.
gave a great wrap up to your constitutional case. I'm sorry to do this to you, but
It's okay.
go ahead and give it to us again. Tell us
All right.
exactly what is going to transpire now going forward.
Okay, so we filed our case with the U.S. Supreme Court, made our plea with them to hear our case. We didn't file the case. We asked them to review it. If they accept that, then we're going to have to go forward with presenting our case. The Supreme Court gets thousands and thousands of requests for review. About one in, I can't remember, 100,000 cases actually get heard.
Yeah.
But our case got to the first step. They put it on the docket. So when they put our case on the docket the next week, that to us was like, oh, somebody's actually saw our filings. The very next day, the U.S. Supreme Court sent a message to the Illinois Supreme Court requesting all of the file, the whole case file from the Illinois Supreme Court. So somebody in the U.S. Supreme Court is looking at our case. Governor Pritzker has until December 14th, if he chooses, to respond to our request for a hearing. That'll be the next day. After the 14th, I think the U.S. Supreme Court is going to have a conference amongst themselves and decide what cases they want to take up in what time frame. If we get through the 14th, and I'm kind of spilling the beans here.
And when you say that Governor Pritzker is responding,
Yeah.
Legally, who is responding on behalf of Governor Pritzker is Kwame Raoul,
Right.
our
Right,
Attorney General.
Right,
Okay,
right.
go
The
ahead.
guy that we're paying for, that I'm paying for, and I'm also paying for our attorneys.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, if we get through, if things keep going,
Well, taxpayer funded.
yeah.
You,
So if
the
things stay in place after the 14th, we're going to ask the U.S. Supreme Court to stay the registration. We're going to say, hey, please put a hold on this January 1st drop dead date until you can at least hear our case. We're the only Illinois case that's at the Supreme Court. When the Seventh Circuit, if Judge McGlynn says the law is unconstitutional, then it has to go to the appellate court. That appellate court has to decide what they want to do, how long they're going to take. It could take months and months and months for the federal side of this to catch up. But we're there. We're at the U.S. Supreme Court. We're the only gun case. We're the only Illinois case there. And we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Well, and at this point, obviously, any of those TROs that were given to the citizens of the state of Illinois under the DeVore, those no longer exist. Your
Right.
TROs, they no longer exist. So people have to abide by the law
Correct.
as it is currently in force.
Right.
So I want to make sure that our audience understands, because we know the success they're having with registering the semi-automatic weapons.
So on the current pace
Yes.
of registration, if it continues at the current pace, everyone in Illinois will have their guns registered in 100,749 years. At the current pace.
At the current pace. And you know what? It's a way that people push back when a government gets out of control, which the state of Illinois' government is totally out of control. Then I think it's up to the people to peacefully protest what exactly is transpiring. We saw it with the mask mandate. You stand up and you say, absolutely not. JB, stop trying to reinvent the Constitution, because that's what this is about. We see it at the federal level. We're seeing it at the state level with JB. I mean, I guess that's the frustration I think a lot of us have. But don't worry. Like you said, Dan, we can't give up the fight because Illinois is too important to give up the fight. Dan, I know that we've just got a couple minutes left. You're here in studio. You're finishing up your term. This is your last term. You've chosen to get behind a candidate for the replacement of the seat, the 88th. Real quickly, give a little bit of a spiel about Regan.
Well, I interviewed 6 people that came to me that expressed an interest, and we tried to talk to them about what's going on. And after talking to all of them, I chose to support Regan Deering. She's a fabulous person, very smart, and a mom, obviously, married, I think, about 20 years, 3 kids. has a master's degree in education, is currently serves on the Mount Zion School Board. But as important as that is, she's also been a driving force in our community, leading issues. She was on the Decatur Public Schools Foundation Board. She was the driver of getting our new food bank built. We had a food bank in a crappy old building, and the board needed a new place, and so they tapped her, and she successfully ran that campaign. She's just a very, very smart, well thought out, solid person.
She's a good human. I've met
She
her.
really is.
And not to take anything away from Chuck. Chuck's a good human too. I always get in trouble when I don't give him kudos. He's a good human.
Well, let's talk about Regan first.
Yes. Well, and the key is, how can our audience get a little bit more knowledge about her? She's got a website, right?
Yeah, she's got a Facebook page, Regan Daring. She's got
For
Regan
Illinois.
for Illinois.
Yep.
She's also on the internet. You can find her. She's here in McLean County a lot, but she's actually doing the work. She's doing the work of the people. I think she'll be a fabulous state rep. She brings a lot of things to the table that I don't have. You know, she was adopted at birth. She's very pro-life. She's been very active in standing up against Governor Pritzker and the mask mandates and the Second Amendment. She's a huge supporter of our lawsuit that's now in the U.S. Supreme Court. She's a hard worker. This would be a full-time job for her. She's not going to be distracted by anything else. And she'll be able to do things in Springfield that I can't do. Reach across the aisle and talk to the women in the Democratic caucus.
It's obviously, we need a change in Illinois, and I think she's obviously one of many candidates that can bring change to Illinois. Hey, Dan, thanks for coming in studio today. We will keep abreast with you to find out where this goes with the Second Amendment. So appreciate you, appreciate our audience.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned. Obviously, we will bring you more here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Until next week, peace be with you. Enjoy the rest of this Thanksgiving Day weekend.